Welcome to another Tip Tuesday. My name is Henry Arth, one of your product managers, product owner of the IndySoft client. And today I wanted to show you a new feature in version 14.1 that has to do with how we default your calibration standards into your calibration style events. So what we've got today, I'm going to show you what we've done in the past and kind of give you an overview, maybe just a refresher, and then I'm going to show you the new feature here. So actually, default calibration standards, I'm going to go to a different asset here. Default calibration standards, if you're looking at this, historically have existed at the equipment template as well as at the equipment level. And so you could add a calibration standard here for your particular organization, and it would sit here. It could be past due. It would get blocked from being added to a calibration event if it's past due or anything like that. And this might be really useful for some smaller operations where you only have so many calibration standards, and for any 6-inch caliper, you're always going to use this particular standard or group of standards, right? So that might be really useful, but for any kind of organization that has many different facilities, right, and all those facilities have their own ownership of calibration standards, and it could be moved anywhere. And furthermore, they have many of that type of calibration standard that doesn't necessarily fit that directly. We've historically also had the ability to add one by category, but that would not enforce any kind of behavior. That would only suggest that, hey, these are the types of calibration standards you want to use. And when we pop open a calibration event, we basically would show you a filter. So this use case that I'm going to go after really is, I have a workstation and I always use these X amount of calibration standards because I'm doing the same thing all day. So maybe pipettes, right? Really good use case there. Could be a number of other places. Could be used in various torque applications as well. But anywhere where you're going to be using the same things over and over again. And furthermore, in this use case, these are settings that can be shared, right? No longer do you have to create them for yourself and then somebody else has to create them. If multiple people are using the same workstation at any given point during the week, then these calibration standards are probably stored at that workstation, and the person should not have to select them again if they're already designated there. So in user location settings, the new setting that we're talking about is under master equip list. In the master equip list here, essentially we have these two calibration standards. So if you're not using the new system-wide vendor branch workflow, right, where you're pushing out contexts for your particular facility or branch to your users, you can still use this because this is going to be available from this screen. But because we are using this new system-wide vendor branch flow, we actually are controlling these through something called device presets. And device presets are kind of like a subset of features. So the user location settings, for example, default companies, these are things that you want to inherit for your facility that you're working for. And there are a number of settings that you would want to be common and referential and no longer, maybe as administratively, you don't want people to play with too much fire, have too much control in these scenarios. And so that's where the device presets come in, though. Some settings have to be workstation specific and they have to be controlled by the end user. Those particular settings are printers, default calibration standards, external devices like data loggers, and then whether or not you're going to use web tier tools or not. So this new option here is really simple. You have two ways to add default standards or default masters. And you can either add them from all companies or add for a default master for the current company or a calibration standard. We use those interchangeably right now. And that's really all there is to it. So I can add any calibration standard under my organization very quickly. It's also stored by a GUID. So even if you perform an asset rename or a company rename, it's never going to affect this. It's always going to be able to choose the default calibration standards regardless of that, because we're not worried about those values and how we store this. The only thing to note here, there are two things to note. When you try to add a calibration standard here, if it's past due, we're not going to let you add it because you don't really ever want to do that. And the other piece to this is that you have a function here or a button here to ignore any of those default calibration standards that historically did exist at the equipment level. Because really what you're saying is, this is my override. I really don't waste my time in having me add calibration standards. They should always default in this exact way. So I'm going to go ahead and turn that on for this purpose, and I'll save that. And I can see those options are stored here. This is not where you can manipulate them in this particular context, but you can manipulate them here, those device preset options. So we'll go ahead and press close. And when you use a device preset, just so you know, you get this little handy icon in the upper right-hand corner. When you hover over it, it will tell you exactly what that device preset is. Again, these device presets can be stored as a shared set of presets that anybody can use, or you can store your own in version 14.1.2 individual settings. So if you're working from home, you don't need people to see all of your settings that are at your house. When you're working in IndySoft, you just really need a printer routing kind of option there. So yeah, you can also click here and update any of those device presets that are listed really quickly. You can also switch to different device presets from this option here. So a couple of quicker options. So all that really is going to happen is when I run a calibration event, when I get to that default standards or specify master screen, we're really just going to automatically add those two items. That's all there is to it. They always pop in here exactly as they should. And it's essentially going to be a time saver, easy way without having to have too many workflow options in place to automatically select calibration standards. Anyway, that's about it. Yeah, if you have any questions, please feel free to email us, and happy calibrating. Thanks.